Nesh with Nature, bring you another information about the temple which is formed from a single block of excavated stone. Kailasa Temple is considered one of the most impressive cave temples in India. The enormous structure is one of 34 cave temples and monasteries that are collectively known as the Ellora Caves. Located in the western region of Maharashtra, the caves are a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and include monuments dating between 600 and 1000 CE. While there are many impressive structures on site, it's the megalithic Kailasa Temple that is perhaps the most well-known. Renowned both for its size and impressive ornamentation, it's not entirely clear who had Kailasa Temple built. While there are no written records, scholars generally attribute it to Raktrakuta King Krishna I, who ruled from about 756 to 773 CE. This attribution is based on several epigraphs that connect the temple to Krishnaraja, though nothing written directly about the ruler contains information about the temple. While scholars have yet to discover its true origins, a medieval legend paints a romantic picture behind the mammoth temple. According to a story written in Katha Kalpataru by Krishna Yajnavalkya, when a king was severely ill, his queen prayed to the god Shiva that her husband would be cured. In return for his health, the queen vowed to construct a temple in Shiva's name and fast until the shikara, or peak, of the temple was completed. The king quickly got better and construction began on the temple, but to the couple's horror, they realized it would take years for the shikara to emerge. Luckily, a clever engineer came along and explained that by starting from the top of the mountain, he could make the temple's shikara appear within a week. This was much to the relief of the queen, who could quickly finish her fast, and thus, the temple was constructed from the top down. Though this is a legend and not fact, the truth is that Kailasa was built from the top. This unusual decision called for 200,000 tons of volcanic rock to be excavated from the rock. Standing at about 3 stories tall, a horseshoe-shaped courtyard has a gopuram tower at its entrance. Given the vast space and the ornate decorations of the temple, it's believed that the work may have started with Krishna I, but could have carried on for centuries, with different rulers adding their own flair. Enormous stone carvings depict different Hindu deities with particular attention to Shiva. As one walks past the gopuram, panels on the left have followers of Shiva, while panels on the left show devotees of Vishnu. At the base of the temple, a herd of carved elements appears to carry the load of the temple on their backs. It's thanks to these masterful sculptures, as well as the incredible engineering of the temple, that Kailasa is considered an outstanding example of Indian art and architecture. Kailasa Temple is a megalithic structure, carved from one rock. Although there may have been a city here that was once called Ellora, now this is a remote place with only the small village of Ellora nearby. The cave temples were excavated in line on the slanting surface of rock mountains, starting with the Buddhist group of 12 caves in the south, then the Hindu group of 17, and the Jaina group of 5 a little away to the north from the other 2 groups. The temple that attracts our attention the most strongly is the huge rock-carved Kailasa Temple, Cave 16 in the Hindu group, soaring on an overwhelming scale. Its gopura gateway and prakaras enclosure walls on both sides are carved out in the foreground from the rock in situ, behind which spreads a precincts as extensive as 45 meters in width and 85 meters in depth. In the center is the gigantic sculpted monolithic main shrine, the substance of which is continuous to the ground. Around the precincts, there are some subordinate cave temples excavated in the rock cliffs on both sides. Sculptural architecture. The Vimana of the Kailasa Temple, seen from the rear mountain. What astonishes visitors most deeply is that this spectacular temple complex was not made by piling ashlar, but by carving directly into a rock mountain. Even though there are great stone buildings all over the world, especially in the Middle East and Europe, such a huge example, which was carved into a rock and is continuous to the ground, is never seen other than in India. Moreover, its walls are entirely carved out with mythical scenes, Hindu gods, fanciful animals, and architectural elements, and its interior has formally carved columns and beams as if it were a stonemasonry edifice. Construction method. A sculpted wall of the Kailasa Temple at Ellora. One would feel faint thinking about the awful amount of labor necessary to carve out an edifice of as high as 32 meters by hand from a rock mountain to perfection, but actually it can be considered that it was technically easier and more economical than the construction of a stone building of the same scale on the ground. For a stone building, ashlars were piled up from the bottom to the top, while in a rock-carved temple masons carved out a temple in the opposite way, from the top to the bottom. From the beginning, cave temples were excavated in that way, in order to work without scaffolding and thus lower costs. The construction work was usually divided into 2 stages, those of masons and sculptors, but in this case, both must have been done together at the same time. Since rock-carved temples were completed in a rather short time, the sites would have always been crowded with a great number of workers. Diffusion of the southern-type temple form. Plan of the Virupaksha temple in Patadakal, 745 of the early Chalukya dynasty. As cave temples were only small caverns cut into enormous rock mountains, columns and beams had no actual role in a structural point of view, being nothing but replicas to make them look like true edifices imitating real independent buildings on flat land. However, at the rock-carved temples in the round, pillars and girders must have sustained real loads, so the workers must have estimated the thickness of each member. In order to accomplish such a huge rock-carved temple as the Kailasa Temple without failure, with much higher level of technology than in cave temples, there must have been architects who were able to conduct every kind of workers, possessing structural knowledge and imagining the final figure of the magnificent temple. Despite not knowing the names of the architects of the Kailasa Temple, he was bound to be from southern India. In medieval South India, the Pallavas and Chalukyas were destined to always be in confrontation with each other, while the Rashtrakutas in the Deccan assumed hegemony in southern India in the middle of the 8th century, acquiring at the same time a mastery of those two dynasty FS cultures. The Chalukyans took the capital of the Pallava dynasty, Kanchipuram, and used its masons and craftsmen in the construction of the temples in Patadakal. It can be supposed that furthermore the Rashtrakutas brought those architects and craftsmen to Ellora. The composition of Vimana. Interior of Cave 16, the Kailasa Temple, Ellora. The main shrine itself of the Kailasa Temple stands on a high podium of two parts, the upper Adhisthana and the lower Upapatha, around which is sculpted a line of large elephants. Access to the main floor is through staircases on either side of the main porch. In the extensive interior of the mandapa are 16 independent pillars and 20 pilasters carved on the walls. Since light comes in only through the openings of entrance and balconies on both sides, the hall gives an impression of a dusky solemn forest of pillars. On the rear is an antarala, small antechamber, then the Garbhagriha, sanctum, where is enshrined a linga symbolizing Shiva. A garva means a womb in a female body as the source of life, and this space is the center of the temple. Over the thick wall surrounding the sanctuary soars the pyramidal tower of the Vimana with stepped stories in a figure of the southern type, surmounted with a large dome-like crown stone on the top. Further on the top was a pitcher-like finial, now lost, which was called a stupi in southern India, while in northern India a kalasha, which was derived from the sacred mountain Kailasa. The invisible vertical line, that penetrates from the linga to the finial is interpreted as an axis of the universe that connects the earth, for men and the heaven for gods. Together with carvings and sculptures throughout, both in and out, Hindu temples, it indicates that they are houses of the gods where heavenly gods reign. How to reach temple. Aurangabad is the nearest city to Kailasa Temple and it is well connected with them by road. From Aurangabad bus and taxi services available to reach Kailasa Temple. Aurangabad is also well connected by state transport buses from major cities of Maharashtra like Mumbai, Pune, Nashik, Satara, Kolhapur and Ahmednagar. How to reach Kailasa Temple Ellora from Mumbai. To travel from Mumbai to Kailashnath Temple, head towards Thane, Kasara, Igatpuri, Nashik. From Nashik you can reach Kailasa Temple via Kopergaon or Andarsul. How to reach Kailasa Temple Ellora by train. Aurangabad is the nearest railway station to reach Kailasa Temple, which is situated around 30 km from the temple. There are direct trains available from the major cities in Maharashtra, like Mumbai, Pune, Ahmednagar, Nashik etc. to reach Aurangabad. How to reach Kailasa Temple Ellora by air. Aurangabad Airport is located at about 15 km from the Kailasa Temple and it is the closest airport to the Kailasa Temple. Aurangabad Airport is well connected to major cities of Maharashtra and India. One may fly to Aurangabad and reach Kailasa Temple by any local transport. Thank you for watching Nature with Nesh. Please subscribe and like the channel.